Yes, gladly. I shall introduce my dear colleague and friend most gladly. An excellent, very warm person, Veronika Zhemchuzhnikova from Kazakhstan. She's the director of Gestalt Institute in Almaty. And our connection is related to many previous speakers also. And Tara, as I've mentioned, she actually helped our team in Belarus, especially in this difficult 2020. She helped us survive, and in early 2022, another story started in Kazakhstan this time. And do you remember this bloody January in Kazakhstan, where 250 people perished and 8,000 people injured? And against this help we got from colleagues from Ukraine, from abroad, supervision, for instance, and we also wanted to take the challenge and be useful in Kazakhstan. So we started working more closely with Veronika, and we started working very intensively indeed, supporting our colleagues from Kazakhstan back then. And this helped me connect, to build this bridge, because we had got help from our Ukrainian colleagues and from Europe in 2020, and then we also helped our colleagues in Kazakhstan. And so this makes us, this brings us closer. We have this personal relationship, we have clients, we have supervision, we work with that, and so we are all closer to one another. Hence, it is a great pleasure to give the floor to Veronika, and she is in our field. We are in Poland, and in Poland, the topic of war is a very important one in the group context. Very often it's the case that there are very singular discussions, very sharp, harsh discussions, especially when Ukrainians meet with Russians, or when we see there's no willingness to actually mix with Poles. And Veronika offers us a very interesting perspective of a Gestalt therapist, because she is in the same field, but slightly more to the east. So Veronika, welcome. And it is a great pleasure to give the floor to you. Thank you, Lena. Thank you for this invitation, and thank you for speaking about our joint experience in 2022. I wanted to talk to you about that a bit, because I'm glad you referred to.
Очень вдохновляет это мероприятие, которое вы организовали для меня, потому что оно вдохновляет.
I have to say that this meeting, I find it very inspirational, and it's very inspiring because we combine psychotherapy with the social context, or actually the political context, and so it's hugely important.
Сначала представлюсь.
So maybe I'll introduce myself. Okay, they are telling me I switched to some other language, but it's all right. I haven't changed any language. Yeah, please stay on the Russian channel. If you keep speaking Russian, okay, I'm on the Russian channel. It's all right. If you can hear me, it means I'm on the right channel. I was born in Kazakhstan. I speak Russian. I'm speaking to you in Russian. And I'm from Almaty, and I'm a Gestalt therapist. I've been a Gestalt therapist for 24 years, and I started my practice when I started work with refugees from Chechnya and then from Afghanistan. And This experience really influenced my practice in Gestalt therapy, but in 2019 I founded the School of Gestalt in Kazakhstan, and it was the first Gestalt school unrelated to any Russian Gestalt institutions. I'm very happy it happened 5 years ago, actually, so it's quite a long story. In preparing for this meeting today, I realized that there are certain losses. We have lost something. When my great-grandfathers decided to move to Kazakhstan, a part of my family left for Kazakhstan in the 1930s, in 1960s, whereas I made a double decision because for the first time I decided to stay in Kazakhstan after graduating from secondary school, while 90% of my schoolmates went to other countries. They went to Israel, they went to the US, they went to Germany and Russia. I maybe subconsciously I decided to stay in my country. And my second decision to stay was in 2011, 2012, when I started visiting European countries, and I joined the international community. I started to enjoy that freedom. I was happy to witness the development, the progress I saw in Europe, while in Kazakhstan the totalitarian regime was growing stronger. However, I decided to stay and to fight authoritarianism. What else can I say? What else can I contribute to our discussion? I believe that I live in a unique country in that we are a multinational state. For instance, I'm here in Almaty. It's an international, multinational city. We have Koreans, Tatars, Uyghurs, Poles, Germans. And it seems to me that what we've managed to do over the last years of crisis, by the way, we have managed to secure this interpenetration of cultures, which is beneficial. And we all experience this crisis and we all work together. At the time of the Soviet Union, there was this harmony was imposed from above. It was top-down harmony. And in the first years of independence of Kazakhstan, there was an authoritarian propaganda. There were some national conflicts in Kazakhstan, but my perception of this was that now it's not harmony imposed from above, but now it's harmony which comes from our hearts, from human hearts.
Сегодня говорили здесь, и вот Жан-Мари Рабин упомянул.
And I have to say that I resonate with many things that have been said here. Jean-Marie quoted Goodman, and he said that faith was about taking another step, knowing that we would have ground beneath our feet. And I remember my experience when I left for the steppes of Kazakhstan. It's a great experience. You keep going and there's nothing there. And you need to look after this territory, this land, and these steppes are my identity. I have this identity, this Kazakh identity. And in terms of my identity and my national identity, not all the rungs of the social ladder are available to me in Kazakhstan. My identity, my ethnic identity, it does not really match certain positions in Kazakhstan. They prefer, for instance, to employ ethnic Kazakh people. So in high positions, they employ ethnically Kazakh people. But in Gestalt, I'm capable of using the talents I've got. Of course, it's not easy, especially taking into account this multicultural picture, but we have this adaptation. When there was talk about trauma, Tara talked about intergenerational trauma. She mentioned the Holodomor in the Great Hunger in Ukraine in 1930s. We have very similar experiences. We also experience Asherslip, this is called in the Kazakh language, it means Great Hunger too. And this Great Hunger led to a great trauma, intergenerational trauma in Kazakhstan, and this was not this has not been processed yet. And if you work with Kazakh people, you need to be aware of this, and you need to realize this intergenerational trauma, because everyone has experienced it in some way or another, whether due to Great Famine or to other reasons. And so hopefully this internet connection will allow me to show a brief video. And we are celebrating in Kazakhstan, it's a holiday which is the Nowruz, which is the Turkish New Year. The equinox, this is the awakening of the earth, the spring equinox, and there's a very interesting video I would like to show you, shot 2 days ago, and we see people dressed in traditional robes. There are these batirs, the heroes in Kazakh attire, then we will see Russian attire, and then the video ends with a picture of a Soviet building built during Soviet times, but it was restored in 1990s. Please watch this material. It will be a very interesting mix of cultures, but very typical for Kazakhstan. Let's watch this video, at least let's try.
Видно ли мой экран?
Please confirm that you can see my screen.
Да, вот, к сожалению, видео будет такое в ограниченном формате, но вот
The video will probably be slightly cropped, but at least we'll have a general idea of this holiday.
Спасибо, что посмотрели.
Thank you very much for watching this video. And once again, I've watched this video, and I kind of realized how it has influenced my identity. I've been living for a few decades in this multicultural environment, and really influenced my identity. Ethnically, I am Russian. I felt this, but I'm not Russian like the Russians who live in other countries, because they are part of a different milieu, a different environment. And now, together with you, I would like to explore our national identities, our ethnic identities. Let's analyze them from the point of view of the processes, as we like to do in Gestalt therapy. There are certain things which have been investigated by sociology, but let us try and look at identity, at gender identity. So we also work with gender identity very often, and this is something that is comprehensible to us. Currently, gender is not a fixed thing for us. We actually have this understanding of gender identity as a certain path, as a certain journey that makes it possible to shape a sort of identity. So this is why I suggest that we do not simplify. I could say I'm Belarusian, Polish, Russian, but let's not oversimplify. Let's supplement this. Let's say
соответствующему тому опыту, который проживает каждый из нас.
let's reflect this experience which every single one of us has. Let's do this brief exercise. You can write on a piece of paper on your phone how you define yourself now. What's your ethnic identity now? Some conditions here. First condition, say it frankly, being honest with yourself. Being honest with yourself, how you define yourself, what your entity, what your identity is, what your ethnic identity is, and write it not with one adjective. Let it be a phrase or a full sentence. Describe your ethnic identity. I'll give you a while to do this exercise.
Возможно, сейчас вы будете испытывать какие-то разные чувства, да. Обычно это только
Perhaps now you're experiencing different emotions.
таким более осознанным. Да, и, возможно, вам захочется добавить
Because this experience is in the ground, in the background, perhaps you want to add something about the story of your family. And perhaps now you're in some unique setting or situation. And perhaps now you understand that you have different experiences, trauma. Trauma which has been brought about by your ethnic identity. You can describe all of this now.
Спасибо. Я вижу, что кто-то уже закончил, и, может быть, ну, по окончании моего выступления...
Thank you. I see that some of you have finished already. And perhaps after our meeting ends, you might add something to this. So this whole idea of testing or checking your ethnic, but national and also national identity is something I started thinking about after our last COVID-induced trauma. I thought we would have a lockdown for several months, but we were closed for several years. And suddenly it turned out that I lacked this sense of belonging, which was created. Then I started feeling this belonging to the international community. So I'm in the herd with a whole group of people, and suddenly it turned out I cannot be where I want to be. As usual, the crisis brought about certain growth. And I understood that there were many things that I did not like that my colleagues in Gestalt therapy did. So I thought to myself that perhaps it's worth establishing cooperation with new countries that better suited my values. And then, in that period of time, I was the president of our association, and we started developing our local community. And our understanding of the local community, it is developing right now, and cooperation between Gestalt schools is underway, and the Kazakh language joined in. Previously, Gestalt was done in Russian, but now we do it in Kazakh language. But after the war, the attack of Russia against Ukraine started, that war brought about a correction in these activities. And that occurred also in the past when we, friends or like students, in September of 2022, noticed that mass mobilization of Russians started. Thousands of Russians started fleeing to us, to Kazakhstan. That was a phenomenon, was a true phenomenon that occurred later on. Perhaps I'll give you some examples later on. I won't digress right now. What is important is that we had T-shirts, slogans in a mix of Kazakh and Russian, and the inscription was "I am a local Russian," in order to set us aside from the Russians who started coming to Kazakhstan. So this way, Russians wanted to stress that ethnically they are today here, the Russians from here. It was very important for them. There were a lot of talks among us. Do you see the differences between the Russians who come in and our, let's say, Russians? Our Russians was a slogan that started appearing. And under that umbrella term, we had Belarusians, and Ukrainians, and all Slav people that started coming in. If we analyzed the phenomenon of what happened then, it becomes interesting from the point of view of the gender identity. So someone occurs through transgender, so misgendered. You perceive yourself differently than you are perceived. For us, local Russians, it was very important to position ourselves as the Russians who are tied to this country, and we can also mention gender dysphoria or sex dysphoria, and we can translate this onto gender or ethnic one, and this brings about shame or the feeling of being rejected. One of the people that I cooperate with, I am a supervisor, she said that they used the English term for that, and they could not, in Russian, speak about issues on ethnic identity because in Russian it didn't work. It didn't fit that person. So while talking about your own ethnic identity, a person had to switch into English. Do I have, how much time do I have? 10 minutes? Okay, but let's have at least some time for comments. 10 minutes, yes? Okay, great.
Опять же, сравнивая две концепции, да, вот
So,
гендер,
comparing these two concepts, gender, we know, is a very complicated matter. Sex is very complicated. That's a box in your passport that you have to fill out. There are many ways that we can approach the issue of people's sex, but also ethnic identity. It's a very complex construct. I'd like to present certain criteria of ethnic identity. We'll base on technology, but also my own experiences, but I'll also speak using gender theory. How do I determine my ethnic identity? Language, right? For sure, what language I speak, well, what languages I use, and many people say that the language that we use in Kazakhstan, our Russian, is different than Russian elsewhere. We have a different accent, we have different words, expressions that we use only in Kazakhstan, and which will not be clear or comprehensible to Russians from other countries. We use the word pater, for example, for hero. We say Atashka, a girl in Kazakh. And Zhanova is, thank you. Apologies, not girl, but grandfather, because it is a world filled with respect. We took it from the Kazakh language. And recently we've been saying uyat. You cannot translate this into Russian. Uyak is a feeling of shame, or not even shame, but disgrace. People feel disgrace or shame, but through that they find something else, something new in society. So we start to take this from Kazakhstan, from Kazakh to Russia. I am a Russian from Kazakhstan, so I started using that language. Another surprising thing, those of you who work with migrants notice that we have some food habits. For example, one of the most difficult things for migrants is the fact that suddenly we are surrounded by different food altogether. We want to use something that we want to eat something that we've been used to in our life, in our home. We have different cuisine. Come up with something which we call the Russian Korean cuisine, different from South Korean cuisine, because Koreans had to without local products, they had to come up with their own meal. There is a notion of expression. We have certain features like the skin tone or color of eyes, but we have not only external expression. We can have a style of clothing, piercings, tattoos, and we that sets us aside very much. In Russian, we say that we don't wear that in our home or where we live. That clearly shows ties to a given place and location. Let's move on to values. So how am I able to adapt to a new environment, and how can I live in that environment and do my thing? In the culture of my country, we have this respect or even silent omission of a certain discomfort or difficulty. It's a cultural thing, so that perhaps if we are in discomfort or some difficulty, perhaps it's not good not to speak about that. But we have a curiosity towards other cultures, and I feel that curiosity. Another interesting and important notion, historical memory. That is very important. Each nation has its historical memory. It is filled with transgeneration trauma. As for historical memory, that here a lot of work should be put into that. Still, we need to work through this. We need to understand what our history is about and how will we treat the history from the past, and especially in the context of today's experiences. And now, let me move on to a summary. Why am I saying all this?
обнаружили, что кроме работы с id-функцией, с телом, очень страдает
Once we
personality.
started working in the area of trauma, we understood that we have problems with personality function and identity. If we better understand personality function, then we would favor rooting in this environment. So we're creating a background which is more specified for a person in a new environment, so that uses it in their work. When we experience trauma, quite often we lose part of our identity. We change the place, the profession, or a change in the family occurs, then we lose part of this identity. But perhaps it's not worth losing it. Perhaps it should be modified or made more specific. This can go hand in hand with all the parts of identity that we have. This way, we're creating a better specified background that we can work with, and that is a psychotherapeutic context. But we also have this social context. We should meet with others. Let's not be afraid to learn about others. And we've mentioned questions, examples of this today. Thank you for your attention. If you have any questions, please go ahead. Thank you very much. So, time for questions, comments. Veronika, you made such a huge impression, or maybe it's evening in Europe. Thank you. And yet we have a question. Nobody's speaking out, so I will. Veronika, what you're saying is very close to my heart. I come from a family with two grandmothers, grandfathers, everyone from a different nationality. My husband has two grandmothers, grandfathers, both and also from different nationalities. So who are my children? That's a good question to ask. So I have questions as to ethnic identity. For me, understanding my own ethnic identity is very complicated. When you gave that exercise to us, I didn't cope. I wasn't able to describe my ethnic identity. I wrote down that I am a multicultural person. I was born in a country which no longer exists. I grew up in a country that I no longer live in because I'm in a different country. I'm in Poland right now. And somehow I've always found common ground and language with people from different nationalities. I never paid closer attention to this, perhaps because from childhood I was accustomed to the fact that people are different and that there's something good. And it's great that we're all together and we're different. So thank you for your support here. I heard a nice sentence a couple years back that nationality is the issue of faith. More an issue of faith than an objective factor. So we can describe ourselves as we wish. Thank you very much. We have 5 minutes, and I'd like to say something completely opposite. Veronika, thank you for your presentation. It was very interesting to me, and I have this feeling of envy because you asked for us to determine our ethnic identity, and I have one sentence. I am a Polish person, and it's so obvious to me that there's nothing more there. I come from a culturally homogeneous country. When I was a child, when I was growing up, only when I was an adult woman, I started reading a lot of Polish history from before World War II, and there were many influxes from different cultures, but that is a discovery of my adulthood, let's say. So I have this feeling in me that I want to absorb, I want to be interested and curious about other cultures and search for where people in our country come from. But that's rather not about my generation, but more, let's say, the generation of our grandparents, that they come from somewhere. But not much has been said about this. It's just not necessarily brought to attention and to the surface, which makes me even more excited to listen to what you've said. Thank you. People leave for homogeneous countries, come back to Kazakhstan and say, "Oh my God, it's so boring in a country where everything is the same." Of course, I'm joking, but coming back to a multicultural country, that is a different experience. There are words of gratitude in the chat box as well. Very interesting from the point of view of Polish, Ukrainian Jew with Baltic blood. And Ajar? Ajar from Kazakhstan? Yes, I am from Kazakhstan. Welcome and thank you for this conference. It supports me very much in this difficult time. As for the Veronika's presentation, it gave me a different view on the terms. I have a completely different approach to the dysphoria, and so the exercise that you gave us to describe ourselves in one sentence. I'm sorry. Yeah, we hear you. No, I just need to switch to a different language channel because probably it's a technical issue. It's not. It doesn't depend on the interpreters. It's a technical thing. I always thought that I'm a Kazakh, but I wrote down something that I'm surprised of. I'm half Kyrgyzstani, half Kazakhstani. I speak in French with the Ashkenazi part. My husband is the son of a historian who was in the Russian camp, and I felt my heart beating so much. I learned about myself, but also about you. It's worth. No, okay, let's make things more specific here. We're testing the possibilities of using this terminology. Indeed, ethnic dysphoria is a very potent topic right now. We need to, perhaps it would be good to introduce the notion of ethnic dysphoria. Thank you, Veronika, for your contribution to our space here.